The Bob Tuskin Show.
All right, welcome to this special report of the Bob Tuskin Show. We're joined by Quinn, who is a family man, a gardener, and he works with a group called the Garden of Eden. Enter the vortex, as they say. Now, recently they've gone through some troubles and have been raided by the SWAT team for what you might expect to be an unsuspecting reason, and it all started with some code violations, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's how it all began about 8 months ago.
And some of the things that I read they wanted to have you guys change were the bushes, which you acknowledged were perfectly reasonable. I mean, if it comes to the point where it's affecting other people's rights and other people's sovereignty, then you figured, okay, we'll comply. But the things that you did not comply with had to do with your own personal living space, right?
Right. Well, and what this really does, if you allow me to get into it here, is that this really opens up the whole basis of everything that has actually happened, and that is that we believe, and it's not just that we believe, but actually our country was founded upon a supreme law, which we call the Constitution of the United States, which has the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution does not give us any rights. The Constitution is there to protect and serve the inalienable God-given rights that are acknowledged that we have. And there's a huge difference between privileges and rights. See, privileges are given. Rights cannot be given or taken away. And so the reason why our country at one point in time was the land of the free and was the most powerful and most prosperous is because we were free, and free societies thrive. That's been proven time and time again. So we live by what's called God's law, what's called natural law, what's called the Golden Rule, which is also what the Constitution of the United States is based upon, which is basically do no harm. So as long as you are not harming somebody else, then you are free to go along your life, pursue your spiritual path, your path of happiness, as long as you're not infringing upon anybody else's rights. So obviously almost no humans live like that anymore. Especially in the United States, especially if you're in some sort of city limit. So we are in technically an incorporated city limits of quite a big incorporated city. It's the home of the Dallas Cowboys, the biggest stadium on earth, Six Flags, all sorts of great corporate and mega structures. But that doesn't change our inalienable rights. So we're not just preaching here. We're not just demanding, we're righteous sovereigns and whatever we say goes, and you have to do this or you will be burned in the fires of hell and blah 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 blah. We dealt with this very responsibly, very calmly, very lawfully, and what we did is we responded to them because they sent us citations. Amongst the citations were, a generally unclean premises, improperly stacked wood, too long of grasses, and some bushes that were overhanging the road from our land into the road. Well, when we looked at it, because we're honorable people, we immediately cut all the bushes that overhung the road because, we thought, that's potentially something that can infringe upon another's free right to travel.
Right, reasonable enough.
Inalienable right.
Yeah.
Exactly. We didn't need that to be enforced. A simple request would have been fine. But they didn't request, they sent us citations, which is already a big problem. In an honorable society, in an honorable country, there needs to be clear communication. And due process of law is actually set up that way on purpose. You're supposed to do an inquiry before you pursue lawful action. You're not supposed to make accusations and then just go to court. You're supposed to work it out amongst yourselves first. You're supposed to make honorable attempts to work it out between man and woman, between man and man first. If there cannot be a resolution, then you take it to the court. That's the way honorable society works. And that's the way it used to be. Well, they skipped that whole process right from the beginning. They just sent us citations. We responded very honorably by cutting down those bushes that did overhang, the road by a little bit, and we sent them a lawful notification very clearly saying We cut down these bushes because we agree that it could potentially infringe upon somebody else's, freedoms, and we have no desire to do that whatsoever. We're extremely honorable, living, breathing men and women. We have no desire, above all things, to infringe upon somebody's rights. We demand that all of our rights are honored and, upheld pursuant to us, the Constitution of the United States, which is the supreme law of the land. And so we very clearly stated to them, unless you can prove otherwise, we are free. We are on our own land. We are, not keeping an unclean premises. We are keeping a sustainable premises. And, the fact is that these long grasses that we have that they don't like, well, these long grasses provide us straw for our earthen building. I don't know if you're familiar with cob, but straw is an essential component in cob building. We use the straw for bedding for our animals.
Right.
We use the grasses as compost, as nitrogen resources for our compost piles. There's all sorts of different utilizations.
And what some might call weeds, Quinn, others might call food. And from what I understand, you have hemp quarter growing, you had blackberries.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so great to know that you're aware of, say, lamb's quarter, for example, because a lot of people would consider that a weed. Or a dandelion, maybe that would be considered a weed. But a dandelion is actually a medicinal herb that has all sorts of remedies that have been documented through the centuries as powerful resources. And it's no coincidence that Mother Nature, because Mother Nature is built on divine consciousness and therefore is perfect, provides the most abundant things. So the weeds are actually not only the most valuable things, but they're also the things that grow the easiest. And we've got all sorts of weeds that we allow to grow because we don't see them as weeds. In fact, just think about grass, not just in the ways that I've mentioned them, but, just take livestock, for example, horses or goats or cattle. They need those grasses to live on. That's their food. So to them, it's obviously not a weed. That's their number one resource. That's their number one nutrient, derivative. So, my whole point here is that we're happy to share information with the ignorant, but they didn't ask any questions. They didn't say, well, why are you doing this, or what purpose does this serve? All they did was send us citations as though, number one, they don't care, and number two, we don't have any rights. So they sent us these citations, we sent them, and we have this all on record. We have hundreds of pages, over 20 different lawful notifications and certified mail where we have proof of their signatured receipt. And it began all in February. We sent them a lawful notification. We said, look, we cut down these bushes because blah, blah, blah. We didn't do this because these are important aspects of our life. And even if they weren't important aspects, we don't think that you have the authority or the jurisdiction to dictate what we do on our own land, with our own spiritual path, and with our own pursuit of happiness. And unless you can show us a law otherwise, that proves that there is no law. And if you do not respond under penalty of perjury, signed, sworn, and attested to, sent certified mail, then your silence is your acquiescence.
Right.
So a long time ago, they agreed. And we've reestablished this over and over and over again on the record that they agreed. They have no authority. They have no jurisdiction. We're doing nothing wrong. We're not hurting anybody. There's no corpus delicti. There's no affidavit of damages. There's no damaged party. Nothing. All they keep doing is bringing threats and unsubstantiated claims. And I know the law. I know how it works. And so it doesn't work on me. See, with most citizens, it's so easy because not only are they ignorant, but they're terrified. They're scared. And, this is a whole other thing to get into, because when you've got people that are scared of their government, that's what tyranny is. And there's no longer freedom. It doesn't exist. As soon as people are scared of their government, people aren't free. And there's a really powerful, famous quote that it would be nice if I remembered it right now, but it's just not my specialty, because really, to me, truth is self-evident, and I could make up all these quotes on myself, but there's a quote basically that says, when the government isn't scared of the people and the people are scared of the government, you've got big time problems. And
exactly.
That's a fact, because we the people have the power, and we the people created the government, we created the Constitution, and we pay and employ the government officials. And the reason why government officials have an oath of office and the reason why they are strictly bound to many, many, many more rules than a free man or woman is because they have limited delegated authority. They're carrying around firearms. They're getting up in people's business. And if they're going to be doing those things, we need them to be bound by a code of conduct, by a code of honor, and we need to be following what we call due process of law so that we can make sure justice is, you can't have a perfect system all the time. But if you follow due process of law properly, you have a very, very, very high success rate of justice because due process of law, it's designed almost perfectly. Just like the Constitution is designed almost perfectly. And that's why we have thrived for so long. And simultaneously, that's why now, instead of the land of the free, the most prosperous, powerful, influential, and inspiring country in the world, now the countries laugh at us, they hate us, they try to bomb us, or we're indebted to them. We have more debt. We have more than any country in the history of the entire earth. I mean, that's a statement right there.
We think we're not slaves. They've taken the chains from our hands and our feet, and they've put them in our pockets, in a sense, to hold us down. The oppression that you've experienced from the bureaucrats is a first-hand testimony of this. And you continue to get harassed, even though you had established your natural law rights with the government. And what happened next?
Uncontested, on record. See, that's the thing, is I have no problem with going to court and having a trial and bring lawful evidence, having them bring testimony, having them bring statements under penalty of perjury that say what I'm doing is wrong or that what we're doing is wrong, and having a jury of my peers deciding that that's wrong. I have no problem with being wrong under due process of law. What I have a problem with is unsubstantiated claims, unsubstantiated threats, harassment, and now it's not just threats and harassments, but literally a fully battle-ready SWAT team breaking and entering upon our land, raping and pillaging the land while everyone was held at gunpoint. Not just gunpoint, but fully loaded assault rifle gunpoint. And here's the thing: is that I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I actually see this as a blessing. I think that this is a really great opportunity for my community especially, and not just the people that live here, but the people in this area, the people that I know, because there's thousands of people that are inspired by us every day. There's thousands of people that love what we're doing, and it's not just because we're growing food. It's the way we live our life in a full spectrum way. We're doing a lot of things that are really inspiring to people, and I'm not saying everyone should live the way I live. I'm not here, giving people tickets because they don't live the way I live. I'm not knocking on people's doors, threatening them with gunpoint to live the way I want to live. I'm just living the way I want to live, and the people that are inspired by that, and the people that aren't, they can go on their own path.
I know many people listening right now are quite inspired by your philosophy and the way you guys are living. Quinn, if you could, take it from the beginning. Let's talk about the raid itself and your first-hand account of what happened. And I understand that you had a mother there with a very small child, and she was taken from them. Tell me all the details. I know it's scary to go over it again, and I'm sure it was quite traumatic, but I think we need to hear the magnitude of what happened.
Well, to me that was the ultimate outrage, because the thing that I am most passionate about in this life is children, because I believe that that's where all the problems begin, and I believe that that's where all the solutions lie. And the real truth is that okay, so this battle-ready SWAT team comes in here, and I'm the only one that sees them come. Everyone was in their beds, 7:40 a.m. And as soon as I see that, I'm not scared, but I'm immediately alerted. All my senses become alive, and so the first thing I think of course, is the mother and the children. I immediately go upstairs. I awaken the mother, and I prepare her as best as I possibly can, for the impending doom. Essentially, there's nothing we can do. They've got the whole, not just our land, but they actually have all the roads surrounding us, all of our neighbors, everything completely completely. They've got cop cars in our neighbor's land. They've got the neighbors under watch. They've got all the roads coming to and from here blocked off. They've got 50 police cars down the freaking road. Like, I mean, it was like insane. So there's nothing you could possibly do, except for be as calm and peaceful as you possibly could. And these guys are coming in super, super, super agitated, like super amped up, like because they think that we're some fully armed, drug narcotics, trafficking, squad, or at least that's what they've been led to believe. So immediately I go upstairs, I awaken the mother, I say, look, there's a full raid here. They're already here. They're going to be up here any minute. Just take deep breaths, get calm. She's sleeping naked because, it's hot out, and that's the way she sleeps most comfortably. And, of course, we're totally free to, sleep however we choose. But she puts on some clothes because, she doesn't want to be, manhandled in the nude by some, rifled, armed man. So she puts on some clothes. She's standing there. She's obviously, very rattled and, got her adrenaline flowing. So she's just trying to take breaths, trying to calm herself because she also knows, that, being calm is the best thing that we can possibly do. Because if you do your research, you will see that it's very common that people get shot in raids. Number one, because the people that come in for raids, I mean, they're SWAT teams for a reason. They're trained to deal with, highly armed criminals. So they're all amped up. They're trained to kill people. And number two, because in the stress and the fear of armed, battle-ready army coming in, people do strange things out of fear. They run, they scream, they fight, they pick up a weapon. If you move your body the wrong way, you could get shot. So just being calm is the best thing that we can possibly do. So they secure the whole downstairs, which is what they would call it, and I don't see anything secure about what they did, but they secured it for their purpose. Then we could hear from the bottom of those stairs, calling up anybody, that's here, call out, let us know, where you are and who you are, blah, blah, blah. So, I, at the top of the stairs, I get to a place where that they can see me, and I have my hands up above my head on purpose, and I say, look, the only thing I care about is the children. There are sleeping children up here. One of them is 2 weeks old. Be calm. There's no weapons. There's no nothing. There's no resistance. I wouldn't come down until I felt like I could sort of establish that calm. Establish that calm. They're demanding come down to the bottom of the stairs, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to resist you. Just be calm because there's children up here. That's all I care about. So I walk down the stairs very slowly on purpose, sort of give time. And, as soon as I get there, of course, they grab me. A couple of the guys, grab me, put me in handcuffs, take me to another room. And then a couple more, I don't get to see what happens because they take me immediately, but they go upstairs. A few minutes later, Anouk, the mother of these two children, both of which, still nurse, comes downstairs in handcuffs, without the children. And immediately me and Shelley are like, why are you down here without the children? Where are the children? What's going on? And, she says, they're upstairs asleep. They're under armed guard. And, whatever the SWAT guys were that were holding her, come and tell them, they say, we've got to secure the upstairs. We got to make sure everything's fine. We'll try to get her back to the babies as soon as possible or whatever. And so they handcuff, they've got her in handcuffs. They, ask her all sorts of questions, demand, information, identification, stuff like that. Again, there's nothing that we can do this entire time. There's nothing we can do this entire time except for be as conscious as we possibly can, as calm as we possibly can. Right. Make sure that nothing unchangeable can happen, because getting your stuff stolen, getting your stuff damaged, being emotionally tortured, things like that. There can be amends for that, but a child or a friend or a loved one being killed,
Sure.
there's nothing you can do about that. And, I'm not necessarily a pacifist per se, but I'm extremely conscious of when, some sort of, violence or protest or whatever is actually of benefit. And in most situations, it's not. And in this situation, it's
battles. You got to watch out.
Right. Exactly.
Especially with children.
Right. And even though it's totally obvious that they're violating due process of law, I still have faith in due process of law. And I believe that actually the biggest problem with the injustice in our country especially is not because of due process of law. It's because of the common man and woman's ignorance of due process of law. And see, this is really my whole point that I want to make, and I'm happy to talk as many details about this whole story as you'd like to hear. But the main point that I want to make is that, obviously due process of law was not followed from not any step from this whole place. The warrant that allowed them to have the fully armed, battle-ready SWAT team that said we were, armed and dangerous, it was all based on false information, of which their raid proved. Their raid proved everything that they had in their warrants to be false. So either one, they're completely and totally inept,
right,
or they were just looking for a reason to try to destroy what they call HVTs, which is high-value targets. And the reason why me and Shelley are high-value targets is because we challenged them with due process of law from the beginning, and we've been telling people publicly what the law really is and how to really use the law. And this is where the real power is, because we, the people, have the power. We've just forgotten that power. It's been suppressed. It's been conditioned out of us. But we, the people, still have the power. So what that means is that all the problems that are happening in this country, it's not actually the government's fault. It's our fault, because we have the power, and we've given that power away. We've allowed our rights turned into privileges.
Ultimately, I feel like there was an obvious underlying motive here behind the raid, and it had nothing to do with the war on drugs. They used the war on drugs and have used the war on drugs for the last 50-plus years as a pretext to, establishing their tyranny and their bureaucracy. I'd like to get to the underlying harassment involved here in a little bit, but I think people are at the edge of their seats. What happened next? I mean, were the children okay? How long did it take for the mother to be reunited? What was their reasoning, at least on the surface, that they told you for being there? And tell me more about the actual day.
Well, I'm all about transparency, and I'm all about honesty. And I don't support in any way any part of what they did, but I can honestly say that for a SWAT team and for a fully battle-ready raid, they weren't excessively violent. They weren't, it was not nearly as bad as it could be, or as documented case that I've seen.
Right. They didn't shoot your. Do you have any pets?
I personally don't, but there was 2 dogs on the property at the time that did not get shot.
I mean, we've heard these horror stories of animals being shot with these raids, and then they find out later that. I mean, it's a common thing nowadays. It's scary.
Yeah, it's like almost standard practice. If a dog barks, shoot it.
Wow.
Yeah, so obviously we were all in handcuffs. Anouk was the last one to come down. We immediately asked, where are the children? What's going on? And I specifically told the people, all the men in black that were there. I said, look, that's it was a 2-week-old child at that point who was born here on our land, had never left our land, had never been away from its mother, who was, breastfeeding, almost continuously at that point in her life, and ideally that's the way it is for infants. So I told all the people that were in hearing range of all of this, and I said, listen, she's never been away from her mother. They need to be put back together as soon as possible. And they responded, we'll make that happen as soon as we can, but we can't because of blah, 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 blah. And I was like, well, you just do whatever you got to do to make sure that she gets back with her children. So they had her down for 10 to 20 minutes. They supposedly took her back up. They left her in handcuffs and they put her in a chair upstairs. And after a period of time, we've all written affidavits about this, by the way, which is a really important facet. And so we can get as many real factual details as we really want. But we all wrote affidavits about this. But she sat in the chair for a period of time. The children were still asleep. So it was way better than it could have been. The children could have been extremely traumatized. I mean, I just can't imagine what it would have been like if those children woke up and all they could see was these huge, men in armor with these huge guns, with masks, and their mother wasn't there. I mean, they just would have been so terrified, so horrified. They would have been screaming. They've just been so scared, and I just, oh my God, it's just horrible to think.
Oh, thank goodness they weren't put in that situation.
Thank goodness that didn't happen, and I'm thankful that didn't happen, even though, it would have given me all sorts of sympathy votes and, all sorts of fuel for the rage and blah, blah, blah. But to me, that's not the point. The real point is due process of law. And, so on one hand, it was completely horrible because they didn't honor due process of law at all. On the other hand, it could have been a lot worse. The children got to stay asleep. They started, the 2-week-old started to wake up. And so Anouk requested to the SWAT officer that was, guarding her with a gun at the time. She said, my child's waking up. She needs a nurse. Can I go nurse her? She has to ask to do that because she's being held at gunpoint in handcuffs. So she has to ask if she can nurse her child. So, the officer, calls on their little, earpiece or whatever, to, I don't know, I guess whoever's in charge, permission to allow mother to, nurse the child, blah, blah, blah. It comes back, affirmative, you have permission. So they took off her handcuffs and they allowed her to nurse the child. And then, thankfully, after the child fell back asleep, they allowed her to stay in bed with the children at gunpoint, with, around 3 fully armed officials at all times, guarding her and her children, or who knows what they might try. They got to, Anouk even, dozed off a little bit here and there. The children slept pretty well for a good period of time. The children really didn't have any sort of negative experience whatsoever because of the way we and the mother, handled it really. And it's just a testament to even bad situations can be beneficial. And that's another point to what I want to make is, again, I'm not angry. I'm not upset. I'm not trying to get, a huge uproar of rage and hate and protest going on here. What I want is for people to realize the truth. And the truth is that we, the people, have the power, that due process of law must be followed, especially by government officials. And when due process of law is followed, justice is almost always had. And so I don't even have a problem with the injustice that's taken place as long as there's accountability for that injustice, which means that we need to be properly compensated and proper amends need to be made for this injustice. And if that happens, I have no judgment. I have no grudge. I have no nothing. We can all go about living our lives. But we, the people, must begin to demand justice. And a big part of this is that we must know how the law works. And a big weakness that we have as Americans is we don't know how the law works. And the powers that be have done that on purpose. They've made it extremely complicated on purpose to push people away, to discourage people from the truth of the law because, that takes too much time, or I'm not smart enough to know that, or that's too complicated. They've even tricked people into thinking that you have to have a license to practice law. You do not have to have a license to practice the law. Not only is it our right, but it's our responsibility to know the law and to lawfully represent ourselves. Back in the day, you weren't a man if you didn't know how to represent yourself in court, if you didn't know the law. In fact, it was very specifically stated in our founding documents of this country that ignorance is no excuse. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. It is our responsibility as free men and women to make sure that the law is upheld. If we don't know the law, then how can we make sure that it's upheld? So we, the people, must know the law, and we must begin to have lawful interaction. And we've done this every step of the way. We sent them lawful notifications. We sent follow-ups to those lawful notifications. We filed these all on public record. We put them in court cases. It's all documented, signed, sworn, and attested to under penalty of perjury, certified mail, filed, with the court on record, with multiple individuals, notice to one, notice to all, the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted. And after the fact, we made affidavits of all of this. Not the day after, but 2 days after, after we, recovered from this 10-hour-long ordeal, we had a little group meeting, and I said, listen, one of the foundations of law is affidavits, and what affidavits are is statements of fact. But in order for there to be any, lawful case, any lawful crime, there has to be a lawful affidavit. And the reason why is because we can't just have people making anonymous accusations. We can't just have people making anonymous, testaments. We can't just have people saying shit here and there. We need people under penalty of perjury saying that I was a damaged party. And if there is no corpus delicti, if there is no damaged party, then there is no crime. And that's a fundamental aspect of common law, of constitutional law, of natural law. If there is no corpus delicti, if there is no damaged party, there is no crime. But not only does there have to be a damaged party, there has to be a signed, sworn, and attested to affidavit under penalty of perjury that there were damages committed against that damaged party by the accused individual. So they did have an affidavit by an alleged Detective Perez, I believe number 2558, that supposedly said that they made an affidavit that they swore under oath in front of a judge that 2 days prior, on the 30th, or 3 days prior, I guess, on the 30th to the raid, that I was in possession of 2 ounces or less of marijuana. Well, I guarantee you that they have no proof of that whatsoever. All they have at most is a testament under oath from this Officer Perez. But if that were to be investigated and if that were to be scrutinized under due process of law, we would find, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, that that was a total lie, because I was here. I was here on this land. I had no interactions with any government officials whatsoever. I was not in any possession of the alleged marijuana, and there's no proof of that whatsoever. And so if the whole basis, because in order to have a warrant, because they had a valid warrant, it had the seal of a judge, it had the signature of a judge, it said the place to be searched, the things to be searched, and what was being looked for. As far as the warrant goes, in some ways it was valid, but it was based on everything that was invalid. They didn't find anything whatsoever of which the warrant was for, and the warrant was based on an affidavit that was a lie. Whereas, on the other hand, we made affidavits, and our affidavits are made on the truth. And so we made affidavits because, number one, it's really good and important to get the facts straight, because it's very easy to get wishy-washy with the facts over time. Time does an amazing thing to memory, especially when you're trying to reaccount specific details, including multiple individuals. So we all made affidavits. We spent many, many, many hours and many days writing our own individual affidavits, which were factual statements based on a timely occurrence of events. So we made affidavits of events, and we told the story of the day. Not the story, because an affidavit isn't a story. It's a recollection of facts. So we listed all the facts, all the pertinent facts from that 10-hour experience. And we all made our affidavits. They're all slightly different because we all had, a slightly different perspective, and we were all in a slightly different, point in space and time. But many of the things collaborate with each other. And, we've all signed these, and we're willing to, swear to these under penalty of perjury, because we know that it's the truth. And all we want here is we want proper due process of law. So number one, we want it from the very beginning. But now we want it because of everything that's happened. So what we want is a, Article 3, Section 2 court, which is a constitutionally sound court, with, a jury members of peerage, to hear the actual facts and testaments to this case. We don't want any hearsay. We don't want any conjecture. We don't want any speculation. We don't want any statements from, government officials. We want bona fide proof. We want facts. We want evidence. And we want everything to be scrutinized under due process of law because we don't have anything to hide. We never had anything to hide. We were totally transparent from the very beginning. We never denied anything. We never argued anything. We simply stated the facts, and we gave them the opportunity to do so. And they showed their cards, which, wound up resulting in a fully armed raid. And, this doesn't just affect us. This affects everybody because this kind of stuff is happening all over the country. And who's paying for it? We, the people, are paying for all of it.
The taxpayers.
We are. We pay for every cent of it. Sure.
And of course, the money is printed out of thin air from the private central bank known as the Federal Reserve, and it's one big.
Which is a whole other thing to get into. But let's see, this information is really important, and there's only so much, in one radio show that we can go over. But if we touch on certain really important things, and if we can awaken and inspire in people just to start asking questions, I'm willing to testify under penalty of perjury that everything I'm saying is factually true, but I'm willing to be scrutinized. Put me in, I'm willing to go to court. I'm willing to go to the Superior Court under penalty of perjury. I'm willing to put my life on the line for the factual truth of this because I know the truth. And all I'm saying is let's begin to ask questions. Let's begin to demand answers. Let's begin to demand answers. I want to see a police report. I want to see a police report of what they said because we actually have on record because this story is starting to get pretty big. We've got all the major, the major news, TV, televisions calling us and wanting to do stories now. We've got all sorts of independent, internet, radio shows. All sorts of people now that are contacting us because they've heard about it, and mostly because there's a huge demand from the people because we started sharing this on Facebook, we shared it on Twitter, and we've done due process of law very good. So we have a very strong case. We're also very likable because we've got a lot of beauty and sustainability and honor going on with what we're doing. So we've got a lot of support for all of that, and so people started sending and forwarding this press release and our Facebook page to all these news people, and they're calling us like, we've got 10 people, we've got 100 people, forwarding us this press release, can we talk to you about it, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I'm glad you took the time to discuss this with us, and it shows you that people are wanting to hear the truth about these things and don't like to see the oppression of the police state coming down on good people with a great sustainable effort. They took away many trailer loads of valuable materials and items that were taken from the land. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. We live a very sustainable life, a very conscious life, a very responsible life. And part of what I believe that to be is less consumption, less use. And I believe less is more. We don't go to Home Depot and buy $1,000 worth of materials to build a shed. We spend 2 or 3 weeks on Craigslist, sending emails, making phone calls, diligently harvesting trash, harvesting reused materials so that we can build something. We don't go spending money because we're responsible for our life, and we believe that if you spend money, you're feeding the machine. You're contributing to the whole system that's actually responsible for the slave state that we exist in. So we're taking responsibility by participating in that as little as possible, and what that means is not spending money. Because even if you're building a sustainable project, which we do, if you buy your materials at Home Depot, you're still supporting the mega corp. You're still supporting the Federal Reserve. You're still supporting the banking cartel, blah, 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 blah. So, we spend time on Craigslist gathering materials. Well, part of doing that is that sometimes we have to save materials for long periods of time before we have enough materials to build a whole project. Because if we've got a large project that we want to build and it requires, just to put a monetary value on it, say $5,000 in materials, it may take months to acquire all of that for free from reused sources. It's doable and it's possible, and we've done it time and time again. Sometimes it takes time. It takes space to store that. We've also got all sorts of other materials that only get used, periodically. So yes, we had all sorts of materials in storage that were being saved until we had enough stuff to build certain projects, and also things that were in storage that we just weren't using in the certain time of the year that it was. So yes, there was trailer loads of stuff taken. and that included 55-gallon barrels, which are extremely valuable resources. 55-gallon barrels are some of the most valuable resources that you can possibly have on a sustainable piece of land. We use them for water storage. We can use them for all sorts of fire and heating realities. We use them for heating water. Hold on a second. What? Who?
And I would imagine that
really?
They have no real reason behind this. I mean, what's their excuse for taking these sorts of materials? They can't, claim that they're evidence for some sort of drug operation. I mean, these are items that you collected.
Right, they didn't claim that at all. They had two warrants. One was for the whole drug cartel reality. The other one was for fire, health, and code violations.
Okay.
They have a warrant for this. They have a warrant for this one too, which is obviously void ab initio, because, like I said, we already established on record. That they had no jurisdiction, that we weren't committing any violations, that we committed no crimes, that they had no authority, and that we were actually doing nothing wrong. And we never once had a trial. We never once had a trial. And so they just show up with this warrant that says, you can cut down and destroy and haul off whatever is in violation.
So on top of taking things from the property, they also cut down your garden, in a sense, from your yard.
Oh yeah, and it's more than a garden. It's a sustainable ecosystem. I mean, if you really do your research into permaculture and wildcrafted foods and like rainforest ecosystems, food forests. It's a very, very sensitive and symbiotic relationship. We've got beehives, we've got all sorts of insects,
and all of this was destroyed.
Right. We've got, it's a very, very, very integrated system, and it takes years and years and years to cultivate a strong system like this. We don't have a field that we go out and burn and then plow it and then plant it with GMO crops. We have a piece of land that, doesn't ever get tilled, that has no GMO crops, that has wild-crafted perennial plants that require certain ecosystems. And not only did they cut down things like okra and blackberry bushes and tomatillo plants, but they also cut down things like lamb's quarter, sunflowers, and Johnson grass, and every single one of these things played a really important role in our ecosystem. Because the truth is that these tall grasses, like I said, not only are they a part of our building, but they're food for our animals, they're bedding for our animals, and they provide shade. They provide shade for a lot of our plants that can't handle 105 temperatures every day. They need that shade. Right. They provide cool. Right? So we had all sorts of crops that were growing in the middle of summer that our neighbors can't grow because they die because it's too hot. But ours were growing because we had a food system where different plants were protecting each other and symbiotically supporting each other. And when they cut those down, all of a sudden, all sorts of other crops that they didn't cut down now die. Because now they can't live the way they were designed to live, because now they're in the full sun, they're exposed to the heat waves and all sorts of stuff that the grass protected them from. They cut down the sunflowers. Well, not only are the sunflowers shade, and not only are they beautiful, but we give these sunflowers away to people for free. We trade them. They're beautiful. And we have bees. We have beehives. And these bees depend upon our flowers. I mean, bees are an essential part. They're a core foundation of our whole natural ecosystem as a whole. Sure. And we're cultivating a true sustainable ecosystem, of which obviously our city of Arlington has no comprehension whatsoever. But they never once took any time to ask us questions like, is there a possibility you actually know what you're doing? They just assumed that we're some, irresponsible, ugly, dirty, white trash or hippies. Whatever they assumed is obviously wrong, because we're extremely intelligent, we're extremely honorable, we're extremely responsible, and everything we're doing is extremely intentful. So everything that they cut down was not only was it an essential aspect, but it was,
It was a part of your family. It was a part of your life.
Yeah, exactly. It was a part of our family. Yeah.
So I totally get that, and I see this as a great injustice, and I think at the end of the day, yeah, they didn't completely traumatize your kids and your family and whatnot, but they definitely did their damage with unfounded force and unfounded destruction on top of that. And I think that is probably the most compelling story here. The headline that I read here from you guys was they didn't find weed, only weeds. I like that.
Yeah, no weed, just weeds.
And these weeds, of course, as we addressed earlier, are kind of a cultural term. I mean, one person's weeds is another person's food. An adaptation to the old adage that one person's trash is another person's treasure, and that's really the case here. I want to leave this under an hour, so I want to take the next couple moments here to kind of wrap up and look ahead as to how people can support you guys and get the word out on this, and what resolution you hope to have from it all. And you've covered that briefly already, but in the final moments we have here, and I know you're extremely busy and getting a lot of requests from the press on this, what would you like to relay to the listeners that are hearing this and reading this article right now?
Well, number one, I want to relate that I love you, and that I believe in you, and that I have hope for not only you as an individual, but we as humanity, we as a country, we as a nation, we as a society, we as a community to be free. And that's our God-given right. It's our born right. It's our natural right, and it's actually a right that's protected pursuant to the Constitution of the United States, which is the supreme law of the land. And that it is only we the people that have the power to enforce that. It's only we the people that have the power. And when the people become scared of the government, you have tyranny, and there is no longer freedom. And we know that to be true, because I hear time and time again, oh, well, yeah, that's what they always do. Yeah, they'll just make up whatever they want. Oh, yeah, well, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you better not do that or this will happen. It's just like assumed, just commonplace that that's the way it is, and there's nothing we can do about it. We do have the power, and this is only the beginning. I'm not expecting you to, give up your entire life and, start a protest and blah, 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 blah. But, start asking questions. Start doing some research. Start looking at, if you haven't ever researched the Federal Reserve, research the Federal Reserve. See what information you can really find. Start researching, start researching sustainable building and sustainable food production systems. We've already proved, and we're not the only ones who have proved this, that it is possible to create sustainable food production systems that provide easily 100% of all the nutrition that a healthy human would need to live 365 days a year, all on your own land. You're not going to have the greatest variety that you would have at a, gourmet supermarket, but you're going to have all the calories, all the nutritional elements that you need at the highest quality that you cannot buy anywhere. We need to realize that every time we comply with laws, statutes, and codes, we're feeding the system. Every time we pay taxes, every time that we spend money at Walmart or Target or Home Depot or even small businesses, we're still supporting the system, because all these small businesses are being taxed out the ass for everything that they do. So basically every time we spend money, we're supporting the system. So unless we are purposefully and deliberately attending to a life that is not supporting the system, we are supporting the system, and only we are responsible for that. So I know we're all in our own place, and we're only ready for what we're ready for. We've got women and, children, and family to feed. And this is a real quick point that I just want to make, because when we had these, this huge raid here, not only was there SWAT members, but there was code compliance officers, there was regular police officers, and we specifically asked every person we came in contact with, what's your name? Do you have your oath of office? What's your badge number? Almost every single person refused. They were hiding their badges. They were putting their hands to the side of their face. They were avoiding us. They didn't give badge numbers. They didn't give names. They didn't give oaths of office. They didn't recite oaths of office. That's all standard practice. If you're in your official capacity, you have to do that. You have to identify yourself to the public. To the private, to the people, to your employers. You can't do that. And when we ask people, like, do you agree with what you're doing? They would literally say, this is just my job. I'm just doing what I'm told.
How many times have we heard that before from police officers? And of course, the most common example of those that were just doing their job are the Nazis, and I hate to bring that up, but
exactly.
that's
it's an important point, because we are one step away from the full realization of the Communist Manifesto, and the only thing that we still have that's not on the Communist Manifesto is our arms, is our guns, and they're trying very, very difficult right now to take away our firearms and take away our guns, because that's the final point that completes the Communist Manifesto. Right here in the land of the free.
And I get the impression though that there was no firearms found that were illegal.
No, we don't have any firearms, because number one, at this point in time, I realize it doesn't do me any good.
Sure.
It does me no good whatsoever, because even if I had 20 guns, there's nothing I could do against a fully battle-ready, trained SWAT team. Nothing. Especially when I have women and children here.
Yeah, that's one thing I say. I believe we should have the right, and you and I both are strong Second Amendment advocates. However, those that think that they're going to be able to rebel against the full magnitude of our tyranny-based government, they got another thing coming. These guys have atomic bombs, folks. They have tanks. They're coming in with their fully automatic weapons that we've been told to fear in huge numbers, and SWAT gear. So at the end of the day, I think your approach was much more astute, and I give you kudos for that. The bottom line is we need to get the word out on this. Where can they read your testimony on this incident? I know it's at the website intothegardenofeden.com, correct?
Yes, thank you so much, brother, for saying that, because there's obviously everything we've covered here is really important, but there's so much more, and this, really this has only just begun. And there is so much more. Into the Garden of Eden is our website, intothegardenofeden.com. On the front page, we've actually got a couple little links there. One says the press release. You can, see the press release, which is just basically sort of like the juicy little, tidbit to get people, interested. And then we've got a little update on there. And we're continuously updating. Definitely visit our website, because, we're in full, I guess control, for the lack of a better word, of that site. But Facebook is actually the best way to find us, and you can find us the Garden of Eden Vortex, or the Garden of Eden Kennedale, Kennedale. It's really the best place, because it's so easy to share. It's so easy to share information via Facebook, and we're in process right now of actually getting all of our documents that we've already established on record put onto Scribed, which is an online public database for public record. So we're getting all of these documents listed online, so that not only are they more powerful because they're in public domain, but also so that people can look at them. Not only do we want to show the proof that they're there, but also there's a lot of wisdom and power to be gleaned, because like I said, until we know the law, we can't enforce the law. And if you start to read our documents, it may be a little difficult at first because they are a little bit heavy in the law. But if you begin to read the documents, you'll be able to begin to see how we have enforced through law our rights. And this is really important, because until we enforce our own rights, we don't have any rights.
That's well said.
So you can look at the documents, you can see the updates, you can share it, tell everyone you know about it.
Sure. We'll also link it. We'll also link it to this article and video that I'm producing right now, and I think we need to do a follow-up at some point. You and I have a lot more to talk about than just this event.
We do.
We got to talk about family. We got to talk about birth.
Yeah.
We got to talk about unschooling, or whatever you want to call it. We don't need the labels for it, but the bottom line is we got a lot to talk about. So I'll have you back on the broadcast in the future, and I appreciate you taking the time to explain all this. Again, the website is intothegardenofeden.com. Listen, Quinn, my best to you and your family.
Thank you for your service to humanity, brother. Thank you for your honor and your integrity. And I wish you as many blessings as you can possibly allow and imagine for your own experience. And may we all be better off because of this. And the best.
Right on. Same to you. And I look forward to our future conversations. Thanks so much.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
This has been another edition of the Bob Tuskin Show. Activism in action. Now go plant some seeds.